Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with SAP IP Business Talks. This time on a Friday. The reason is very simple. I was in Strasbourg giving lectures the whole week, and so we were not able to do it on Wednesday. And we talk today again about personal growth. In this episode, we talk about mainly business development, which we already talked about on Friday last week in our little workshop and exchange of experiences here in Munich with Weikmann and Weikmann. The post is already online, so you can see what we did there. All the slides, all discussion items are there. And today we are live. For the ones who know us already, you can write your comments or questions in the chat on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to pick that up and to discuss that with my guest. And my guest today is Bernard Savage, and I'm very happy. It's a big honor to have him here. I learned that we talk today with Nottingham and in Great Britain, in England, to be correct. And I'm very happy because I learned about his approach on business development some time ago, I think a year or so. And I follow him on LinkedIn, and every time, every day, it's a new little episode on his storytelling about business development and about personal growth. And every time we can learn something from him. So, Bernard, thank you very much for being with us today, for taking the time. Tell us, how did you came into this strange field of IP?
Okay. Well, firstly, thank you for building me up in the way that you have. I hope I don't disappoint any listeners. I came into IP very much by accident, to be honest. And that followed a previous accident, which is entering law, which wasn't planned either. So if I go back to the beginning of my career, so that's 1990, 35 years ago now, I worked in a very different world. I worked in blue chip environment at Procter & Gamble and Shell. In the latter years there, managing global sales team at Shell. And after 12 years in that environment, I landed by accident as a marketing director for an international law firm that I'm sure many of your listeners will know, which was Eversheds, as it was known at the time, Eversheds Sutherland today. And I'll be the first to acknowledge that when I joined the legal sector, which was 25 years or so ago, I didn't really understand professional services. I didn't really understand the legal sector. I wouldn't have even known what intellectual property was, but we'll come to IP in a minute. Hadn't done the due diligence I really should have done. So I had a very steep learning curve at Eversheds. It was 2 very tough years because I didn't really understand that world and the role of a sales and marketing person in a partnership culture in a law firm. However, there's an English saying that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And when my time came to an end at Eversheds, I made myself some promises. And one of those promises was I wasn't going to work for anybody else. It was quite a difficult time. I won't go into the details now, personally and professionally. And I decided that I wanted to take the positives from my 2 tough years at Eversheds. And the positives were, it gave me an insight into professional services, not IP. I'll come to IP in a minute. But it gave me an insight into professional services. And the thing that really struck me, that was the sort of light bulb moment, was I was surprised. I could use stronger language, but I won't. Surprised at the lack of sophistication or the lack of attention to professional business development and professional marketing. I see a difference between the two. If we have time, we can get into that later. But my background is business development primarily, marketing second. And the thing that kind of struck me was that people were thinking, because I'm a good lawyer, that's all that's required to be commercially successful in a sustainable way. And I didn't agree with that then 25 years ago. I certainly don't agree with that today. I think that when someone instructs an advisor, whether they're a patent attorney, trademark attorney, commercial solicitor, whatever, they're taking the legal expertise as a given. There's something else that's required. I'll come to the IP bit now. So when I set my own business up, I wanted to work with like-minded people that worked across the professions, law, accounting, other advisory services, that agree with me that just being a good technical practitioner isn't enough to be commercially successful. And one of the highlights of my time at Eversheds was I'm going to name this person because some of your listeners might know her. And I always name people if it presents them in a positive light. If it doesn't, I won't name them. So the person I met at Eversheds, who was a senior administrator at the time, was somebody called Bridget Harrison. And when Bridget left Eversheds, she took in a role at an IP practice, which is Reddy and Gross, based in the UK. And I believe at the time, this is 20 years ago, that Bridget was the first in-house appointment that Reddy and Gross had made of a marketing professional. And Bridget and I, we got on well at Eversheds. She introduced me to the management team, the equity partners at Reddy and Gross. And the result was I got instructed to deliver some BD training. Fairly modest. It wasn't a big instruction particularly, but delivered, I don't know, I can't remember, 2 or 3 workshops. Anyway, when that came to an end and we had a debrief, Bridget said to me that she'd just been appointed on a committee at the Chartered Institute of Patent Attorneys in the UK. And she asked me whether I would consider giving a talk. And then she was apologetic. She explained there isn't a budget. I don't normally do things without a budget, Alex, but I agreed to do this talk. And I suspect in the 18, 19 years subsequently, I haven't made a better marketing decision, because that talk then led to doing some work with Abel and Imre, Withers and Rogers, Cartmels, Newben Ellis, Gil Jennings, and so on and so forth. Because, you know, once you, I was learning all the time about the nuances of intellectual property, but I think I was right place, right time all those years ago. And I can honestly say, I work today with law firms and accountancy firms and other business advisory services, but I can honestly say I particularly enjoy my time with intellectual property, because it reminds me of some fond times I had when I left P&G and I worked at Shell. I see lots of parallels between the people I used to work with at Shell all those years ago and the IP community. And what I mean by that is people who are very intelligent, but have something that I think is very special that isn't always the case in other professions. And I'm not going to be more specific than that, which is that I see an absence of egos. I see people that have a high degree of intelligence, but actually, perhaps don't necessarily have an ego that goes with that. And I find that a very attractive thing, to be working with smart people who will challenge you and ask you difficult questions, but will listen and won't assume that they know best. We'll actually engage in a conversation. And so I haven't really looked back. That's how I got into IP, by accident. I enjoy what I do, work with all sorts of IP practitioners, from sole practitioners right through to some of the biggest firms in the world. So there you go. That's the story.
I guess that's very typical, that lots of us in the IP field, whatever they are doing there, they came by luck and just per chance. And there was no plan behind. But then this is a kind of virus, and you learn how all these facets and the depth in the knowledge and in the complexity in this field. And this is typically very attractive for intelligent people. It's very simple.
I agree with what you said, Alex. I could think of patent attorneys I've spoken to, and I've asked them, how did you get into it? And invariably they say, by accident, or my next door neighbor suggested it. Even my next door neighbor suggested it as a career choice. Perhaps that's part of the problem in IP, that there's a lack of understanding, in the public domain about intellectual property, and that's the first BD challenge. Really, it doesn't matter what firm you're in. It's educating people in intellectual property and its importance and why people should ascribe a high value to it.
Yeah, Maria Beuseler-Weinans, she was with me at Weigmann, gave a presentation that she's a lawyer, and at the same time she helps law firms with marketing, and especially digital marketing and business development. And she said something very bright. She said, you always have to sell twice. First, you sell IP, and then second, you sell your service. And it's a lot of wisdom in that, and that's what I say to my institutional stakeholders all the time. So systematic business development is the same for an individual, is the same thing like awareness building in general. So IP awareness building is the same. When we have visible experts out there, active experts, and smart services which are available, then this awareness is then the next step, which follows that users of the IP system understand IP better and realize that that kind of service can help them.
Yeah.
So a first question to you is something which we had. So we had this this exchange of experience in a patent law boutique. Nearly 30 people were there, patent attorneys, and we had a profound discussion. The question that some patent trademark attorneys, IP experts in general, that like experts, they think that when they work well, when they satisfied their clients, so then there is something like that speaks for itself. So word of mouth is enough, it speaks for itself, then people will follow. Unfortunately, in most of the time, they don't follow. And they don't call you just because they have heard anything. And the question is, what would you say? Could we call that business development? Or is systematic business development something different?
Okay, let's break this into small parts. Let's break this, unpack the question. First thing I would say, and I'm going to be very frank, is that I think it's naive of any business professional, not just a patent attorney, an IP advisor, anyone who provides advisory services, to think that because they do that well, that should suffice. And here's why. Firstly, unless you operate in a niche of a niche of a niche, so you're the only person that does that, it isn't going to be enough, because there'll be somebody else that at least purports to offer that service that can solve that problem. So it doesn't give you an edge. Secondly, when it comes to instructing advisors, and IP is not unique in this respect, when it comes to instructing advisors, it's not the thing that's at the forefront of someone's mind. Someone has a problem, or they have an opportunity and they need some help. They need to mitigate risk, or they want someone to help them realize the value. There's a level of stress. They're not really thinking about IP, or they're not really thinking about marketing. They just want to solve a problem or achieve a goal. And when it comes to advisors, a lot of it is who is front of mind. A lot of it comes down to memory. Does somebody remember you at the particular time they want to file a patent or defend their assets, whatever it is? So a lot of it comes down to being known, being visible. But I really wouldn't underestimate the importance of relationships. And I think the word relationship is misunderstood by many IP practitioners, not just IP practitioners, other business advisors. I think that mistakenly, a lot of people think that means schmoozing people. It means being salesy. It means being sycophantic, obsequious, and lots of other words I can't spell. Lots of long words. But that's really not the truth. Relationships are important because they cement trust, and trust is absolutely critical when you're talking about protecting someone's assets. You're talking about potentially helping someone achieve a lifetime ambition to get something to market or to sell a business, or get investment for a startup. And therefore the relationship stuff is really critical. So for me, the marketing is about awareness. The business development is about relationships and building trust. And the systematic approach is, it's not a very sexy word. It's not very glamorous, but my observation of successful people in any sphere of life is a lot of it comes down to systems, structure, discipline, commitment, consistency. And the problem is, without a systematic approach to business development, you're left with people operating in a very ad hoc, haphazard, random way. So when they think of it, perhaps when they're not very busy, they'll invite somebody out for lunch. An email appears into their inbox about a networking opportunity, and they might go to it if there's nothing else going on. It's not a very commercial approach to BD. That's a random approach. You're not necessarily going to the right events at the right time, communicating in the right way. I also think there's
isn't that fascinating that IP experts, so especially in IP, people are so well trained, highly educated, very smart. Otherwise, you are not an IP expert. So, and when it comes to the question, why should somebody make business with me? They are completely lost. So I don't know. I hope they call me. I mean, to a certain extent, this is this expert behavior. So when it comes to business consultants, this is completely different, but they have a different background. They are not technicians or lawyers, but even lawyers are better in that. When we talk about IP experts, then my impression is this is the attitude that somebody should ask me for help, and that's it. I don't want to build relationships. I don't have time for that. I mean, the point is that are human beings with whom you have to work with, and they try to reduce everything to the case, to the technology, and separate that from human being. But as you said, typically it's not the IP; it's the business question behind that, and that is what is important for them.
People. Human beings need some kind of connectivity. Now, I don't think I'd be generalizing or being controversial in saying that in the IP profession, there is a significant number of people who would probably describe themselves as less extroverts, perhaps introverts. And there is a misunderstanding that somehow if you are a less outgoing individual, therefore you can't do business development. That is nonsense. It is nonsense, because professional business development and adopting a more structured, professional, systematic approach does not require you to sell your soul and dance on tables at 3 o'clock in the morning and be very pushy. You don't need to be extrovert. You do need to be visible, but it's about finding some common ground. And introverts are every bit as capable of doing that as extroverts. They might go about it slightly differently. So again, one of the ironies for me is that many of the same IP professionals who say they shun business development, so they say they don't have time, the little time they do invest, they do the wrong things. So they'll go to perhaps a more traditional, formal, large event that's intimidating for anybody, frankly. Even someone, I would describe myself as a more outgoing person, but I still have anxieties, I still have insecurities, I still have the occasional wobble, I have a bad hair day or whatever it is. So why make business development harder than it needs to be? If you are somebody who is less comfortable making small talk with strangers, it's fine. You don't need to do that. What you do need to do is spend more time one-on-one or in smaller groups with the people that you know already, but trying to get to know them a little bit better. And knowing them better doesn't require you even to talk very much. In fact, it just requires you to listen. And somebody who's less extrovert is probably more adept at listening anyway. So it just requires, it's a different mindset, but the systematic thing is important, because without a system, you won't make the right choices. And if you look at any good business practice, doesn't matter whether you're running a fish and chip shop or whether you're an IP professional, systems, having processes and protocols are important. And they're important in terms of doing the right things. They're also important in terms of efficiencies and time management. And again, having a more systemic approach to business development will ensure that the precious time someone can afford to invest in BD, they get better returns.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. So when you said you think that business, so my experience is that in many cases, marketing and business development is more or less used exchangeable for IP experts. So
yes, it is.
They don't get it. I mean, I sent them a questionnaire before of that meeting, of this experience exchange, and some of them didn't answer me because they said, I don't understand the terminology in your questionnaire. So, and yes, it was about marketing and business development. So it's not unusual that these terms are more or less vague in the discussion, and both had a kind of negative association for them. So what is your definition of that, and why we shouldn't confuse these two terms?
So I'll answer your question, but I'm going to give a disclaimer first. I'm going to give a couple of disclaimers. The first disclaimer is I'd probably give a different answer depending upon what day of the week you ask me the question. Second disclaimer would be, if you asked 100 marketing or BD professionals the question, you'd probably get 100 different answers. And my third disclaimer is think of it like a Venn diagram, and you've got marketing on one side, business development on the other. There's a gray area where arguably one kind of morphs into the other. So those are my disclaimers, but now I'll attempt to answer the question. For me, marketing is doing stuff, some activity, so that when an individual goes into a room, literally or figuratively, and starts a conversation with somebody, they say, oh, Bernard Savage, yes, I've heard of you, and you specialize working with IP professionals, and I've heard some good stuff, and you do that interesting LinkedIn stuff and tell stories, and you've got that interest in that obscure football team that plays in the lower divisions, and you talk about food quite a lot. So for me, the marketing is the noise that you create, so that when as a human being you embark on a conversation, you interact with someone, they know who you are, they have a positive impression, and they have at least some idea of kind of what you do. So the marketing stuff is around the brand. It's around having a website, having perhaps some marketing communications, creating some noise so there's some level of awareness. The business development, that's about relationships. That's about being visible, connecting with people and building trust, and investing in relationships. And I think this is where the two are confused. I think both are very important. If you don't have a website, or you don't have a brand in the marketplace, or you have a brand that has a poor reputation, you can be very good at business development, but it's going to be hard for you because you're starting from a negative position where someone doesn't know who you are or has a poor impression. But equally, you could have the best brand, you could have the best website, you could have the best brochures, the lovely fancy offices with, I don't know, beautiful coffee in the reception. But if people don't like working with the partners or the attorneys, the agents, it's not going to count for very much. So that's how I would answer the question. It's not black or white. They're both important. Depending upon the size of, if you're working in a bigger organization, they're two very distinct areas. If some people might be listening to this who are sole practitioners or working in sort of micro businesses, then in those situations, the marketing and the BD become quite entwined. And effectively, your brand might be you.
I understand perfectly what you're saying. And to a certain extent, I agree, especially when you say business development is about relationships. I think that's nothing else to say to that. People hire people, and in this business, with these marketing, I don't agree 100%.
That's good,
because I think we should separate law firm branding, the firm branding, and the firm marketing, and that is this fancy stuff with thick carpets and leather seats and whatever. And the personal branding, the expert branding.
Yeah.
Because my experience is that it makes a huge difference, and I have that experience personally, not just with the IP subject matter experts with which we work, but they say me the same. It makes a huge difference when you come into a room, when you start a video conference, and this other person has already an idea who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I would separate this, which aspect of marketing we are talking about. And I think expert branding is really important and can really reduce the initial costs, the time for building this trust in a relationship.
I think we're saying the same thing, coming from a slightly different place. I think the other thing that's implicit in what we're both saying is that people buy individuals. They don't buy the sign above the door. And in one organization, there might be, let's say there's 10 IP advisors. Well, a client might be very attracted to one of those advisors, but have no intention at all of working with the other 9 because for whatever reason, they don't feel as comfortable, they don't connect. That isn't necessarily got anything to do with the expertise of that individual. People buy people, that's the bottom line. They don't buy the sign above the door unless you work in a niche of a niche of a niche. I think, in the UK, you have a law firm like Slaughter and May, who are synonymous with mergers and acquisition activity. So, or you have the big 4 accountants in the UK, PwC, Deloitte, EY, who've I forgotten, KPMG. They will always get instructions because of their name, but I think those are exceptions. Generally speaking, people buy the individual, and I think that's good news.
And in so far, this I think that's a very important point, because I literally have this experience that IP experts have a strong tendency to hide behind the law firm brand.
Yes.
And they don't want to, they want on their own on the stage for whatever reason, because they are more introverted, they feel like an expert, they are not good in communication, whatever reason. But simply that doesn't work. You cannot hide behind your law firm brand when you want to be hired as an IP expert. It's very simple.
Yeah.
That is a brutal truth, which simply should accept it.
Yeah.
So when you work with IP professionals, and as to a certain extent, you can say the better they are on their technological profession, on the more they have difficulties with establishing that kind of relationship, or especially with maintenance them. So over a longer time. What would you say? Where lies that? So why is it so? And how can it be trained or learned to to become better in that?
Okay. Again, I think it's worth breaking this down into the several areas, probably discussions in themselves. So one of the aspects that makes this much harder is to do with culture. And all of us are a product of our own environment. You know, I was incredibly fortunate at my first 10 years of my career. I graduated, I started my career at Procter & Gamble. So all I knew was Procter & Gamble. I thought the world and everyone operates like Procter & Gamble. What a shock when I left P&G, because they don't at all. More's the pity, because in the 25 years since I left P&G, I've yet to see an organization in any sector anywhere in the world that does things quite as well as P&G. And it's worth reflecting on why. And I am going to answer your question, but this is relevant in a tangential way. Procter & Gamble's success isn't necessarily because of the quality of the people or the quality of the products. Yeah, the people are reasonably good, the products are reasonably good. That's not the reason for the success. It's to do with systems. It's to do with being systematic. It's a very, it's actually a very easy company to work in. Very, very easy. Once you get a job with them, it's this process for everything, and you just follow the process. Now, if we relate that to IP, the IP world, and I try and answer your question about why professionals find it BD quite difficult, it's not within the culture. There are no systems underpinning it that make it's not surprising that IP professionals have difficulty in this area, because you're a product of your environment. So, you know, if I think about take leadership as a parallel, in the Procter & Gamble model, you start as a graduate and you're trained in the first year to manage somebody, and within 12 months you're managing, so you're responsible for somebody else. So it's part of the culture. You imbue all of those good habits and behaviors, and you have training from so much training, non-technical skills training. It's unbelievable. Within the IP community, and I'll extend that across the professions, it's no different in a law firm, it's no different in an accountancy firm. Less than a very, very, very small percentage of the training, continuous professional development is remotely limited, is remotely connected to business development or leadership or commercial skills, full stop. It's technical development. So when you look at a culture that underpins an IP practice that doesn't talk about BD, when you look at the absence of training, why would you expect people to be comfortable in this area? It's really not surprising. And then you imbue the behaviors of your bosses. So if you have a bad boss, or if you have a line manager that has no interest in business development, or thinks that business development is limited to canapes and house wine at some stuffy event, then you're going to think that's what business development is. Yeah. So to answer another aspect of your question, what can people do? I would say just bring it back to basics. Go and just spend time with people. Don't try and sell them anything at all. Just be proactive. Identify individuals that there may be some potential value in the future to get closer to. Go and have a coffee with somebody. Before anybody says, or it uses a chat facility to say that's not possible because my clients are in the Far East and I'm based in Germany, schedule a Teams call, but take the initiative, be proactive, and have a system. Identify the individuals that you're going to show intentionality over the next 12 months to get quality one-on-one time with, and just show an interest in the business. Just ask questions and listen. That's it. The business development is no more than get time with people, make them feel sufficiently comfortable that they'll talk about their business, they'll talk about their hopes, they'll talk about their goals, they'll talk about their aspirations, they'll talk about their challenges, and just listen attentively, and use what you learn to explore what that might mean for IP and the role that IP may play in addressing those particular issues, challenges. So it's just making time for people.
I love so much what you're saying because today I had a partner, Tony from Korea. He's doing a course, a private course, and we talked about IP strategy. And he said, okay, I've learned now. So we are in the third session. So he had learned a lot about market-based view, resource-based view, blah, 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 blah. So, and then he said, yeah, but when an inventor comes to me and then I should file a patent for his invention. So then how could I apply this knowledge? Yeah. And then I said, look, is a patent the description of an invention? No, it's a forbidding right.
Yeah.
And the question which you should ask is, who do you want to forbid what?
Yes.
So, and this invention won't tell you that. So you have to start to ask questions and to show interest. Interest in the business. That's the reason why this guy wants a patent. So what is the business? What is the intention? What is the intended impact of the patent? All that aspects. And this, what you say about business development, I mean, it is exactly the same. At the end of the day, it's about business. It is not about patents or trademarks or whatever. And that means I really have to be interested in the business of my client. And sometimes people ask me, why should I be on LinkedIn? And then you learn something about your client. Listen. In this case, watch and read and ask questions, and you can do that 24/7 if you want. And that's what just to support your thought that it is about the business, and that is the mission critical thing here.
I think it's very. I have much sympathy for IP professionals, because so much of the training in your work on a day-to-day basis is about detail. It's about data and facts, and the difficulty is there's business development isn't about particularly about rationality and data-driven arguments. Although, don't get me wrong, data it can certainly help in the marketing, particularly, perhaps more so than the business development. But it's about emotions. It's a lot of it's quite intangible. It's about making people feel comfortable and confident that their IP or their future, their livelihoods, is in safe hands. It's making them feel confident. You've got to do something to give them confidence. And the technical side is never going to be enough. There's always going to be someone else who can do that. And the other problem you've got is if that's the only differentiator, you're effectively commoditizing your offer, which then forces people to make a decision based on price. So unless you want to be the cheapest person in town and not make any money, you've got a problem. But if someone wants to work with you within reason, they'll pay the price.
Absolutely. So let us assume we have convinced one or two of our listeners. What would you say? What is a practical, maybe a step-by-step approach which experts, lawyers, attorneys can follow in the right direction, so to speak? We have 5 minutes left, so okay. I know it's not too much time, but could you explain us a little bit what is the direction in which we should think and maybe even walk the talk?
So, okay, 5 minutes is a challenge. Here we go. First thing I would do is get you to forget about words like marketing and business development, because they can be hindering to some degree. Think about visibility. So step number one, create what I call a visibility wall. Just create a picture about visibility. So at the center of the picture is your target, your client avatar. Who is it? Who is the right person for you? Who is it exactly? Not in general terms, but paint the picture of a profile of what that ideal client for you looks like. In a way, a detective would do create a profile for somebody they're looking to identify. What's the profile? Then look at different ways to build visibility. So what publications do they read? What trade bodies are they members of? What networking groups might be relevant? What conferences might be applicable? Think you're a detective. How am I going to get visible to this client avatar? Who are their existing advisors? And when I say advisor, don't think of advisor purely about IP. Think about who are their auditors, who are their solicitors. And with the internet, frankly, with AI today, this is much, much easier. Any of the AI tools, you could ask those questions. You could complete your visibility wall in 15 minutes. It won't be perfect, but it'll give you a very good place to start. Then what you might do is invest in relationships. So create your own coffee plan. Identify a small number of people, manageable number of people that you know already, and you are going to approach. And you're not just to have one contact over the next 12 months, but you are going to take ownership and be accountable for 3, 4, maybe 5 contacts over the next 12 months that have nothing whatsoever to do with filing patents or require them to contact you about something. And get time with them, show an interest. And one of the easiest ways to do it is to say to somebody, there's something I'd really like to pick your brain on. I'd really like your advice on. If you have the confidence to ask that question to somebody you know already, and then you tell them the truth. So you might say, you get their attention. People feel flattered when you ask for their help. They'll be intrigued as to what you're doing. When you get the Teams call or the coffee meeting, whatever it is, you say, thanks ever so much for your time. The reason I wanted to pick your brain was my intent over the next 12 months is I want to get much more immersed in the world of aviation, automotive, life sciences, or whatever the area is you're interested in. And you talk them through your visibility wall. You say, I've done some thinking. I've started to map out where these people go and what they get involved with. If you share what you've learned, I guarantee you your existing contacts in a coffee meeting will improve your plan, because they'll say, now that conference, that's not really quite right for you, because that's more intended for accountants or private equity or whatever. What you need to do is you need to go to this event. And then this is where it gets really interesting, Alex. They'll say to you, actually, it's rather fortuitous we're having this meeting, because I've just been appointed on a committee and we're always looking for external speakers. Would you, and people don't really understand IP, would you be comfortable to give an educational talk about IP? And this is when it starts to happen. I call it engineering serendipity. Your existing contacts can help you improve your visibility wall, but you need to be visible. Anything that builds your visibility, that enables you to position yourself in the marketplace, not with it being salesy, and tell stories, make it interesting. And you were very kind, Alex, at the beginning, and you talked about enjoying some of my LinkedIn content. What I try and do, not saying I always get it right, is to do 2 things: educate and entertain. Don't underestimate the importance of a lighter touch, the entertaining. I'm not talking about stand-up comedy, but some people do take themselves a little bit too seriously, and it's people that are going to instruct you.
Wonderful. I think the starting point is really mission critical, having this ideal client profile, because of course I hear often that IP experts complain about a specific target group or about specific kind of clients. And then I said, yeah, but what you're really doing active, what you're doing to get the ideal client profile. And these targeting, creating a persona, understanding the target, and then be interested in the target, stand in their shoes, try to understand their decisions, the environment, the influencing factors in their business, the talk of this business. And I think that exactly what you said, that helps enormous to get in contact with the right people. So when I've asked, first of all, I thank you for this extremely insightful talk. That was great. And thank you very much for your time, for your insights, for being available. And it would be great if you are available also some minutes after that in our after show party on LinkedIn, so that you could answer questions there. And yeah, to all of you out there, it's strongly recommended to follow Bernard and also ask him questions and interact with him, and if necessary, work with him. Absolutely great, and I can only recommend to you. So finally, when you are an IP subject matter expert, still our call for subject matter experts is open. You get the link here, you get it in the chat. So apply. We are happy to work with you and to do all the wonderful things which were already explained as a summary in systematic business development, which is nothing else than awareness building for IP. So enjoy your Friday afternoon, and once you reach it, I wish you a great weekend. Thank you very much, Bernard.
Thank you.